What is up? Welcome inside the voice of college football, Arkansas. We've got a good show for you today. So we're kind of in the dog days of football. We're in February, so everything's a little more boring during this time of season. But we still have a lot to talk about. The NFL Combine is this week. Arkansas has 6 different players. We talked about it 2 weeks ago on kind of the guys that I thought could be participating in this event and how a lot of these players, these seniors from this past year's team, did in a lot of the All-Star Circuit games. A lot of uh, impressive performances over that time period, and ultimately 6 guys got into the NFL Combine from the Razorbacks, and those were the 6 guys that were at the Senior Bowl. So that includes quarterback Taylor Green, running back Mike Washington Jr., wide receiver, actually not wide receiver, or offensive lineman Fernando Carmona. And then on the defensive side, 3 guys: Cameron Ball, defensive lineman, linebacker Xavier Sorey Jr., and then cornerback Julian Neal. All 6 of these guys have a realistic chance to be drafted. I think that Julian Neal, Mike Washington Jr., those 2 are the top players. But I expect big things out of some of these guys at the combine. Taylor Green, what is he going to run? Does he run? And if that improves his stock, if he runs really well, is he like switching positions? Or if he doesn't run well, there's a lot of different question marks with him. Mike Washington Jr. is a guy, if he runs well, I think can really vault himself into a day 2 pick. Fernando Carmona, he's a guy that I think is going to be a 3rd round or day 3 guy. So that's rounds 4 through 7. Kind of regardless of his performance, he can't be really bad, but he's going to be a guy drafted to play inside. And then on the defensive side of the ball, can Cam Ball run well? Does he do well in the drills? Xavier Sorey, the same thing. Those could ultimately get those 2 players drafted. And then Julian Neal, his measurements I think are going to be huge. If he's a longer corner, I think a lot of GMs, a lot of scouting departments like longer corners. And I think Neal, who's a bigger guy, I mean, 6'3", 200, according to a lot of different measurement sites. And so he's a guy that I think his measurements could be really impactful for him. But all 6 of these guys have an opportunity to improve their stock. All 6 of these guys have an opportunity to be drafted. So we'll be keeping up with that and seeing how well our guys do this week. I think Thursday is the first day for measurements and then on-field performances. So really begins on Thursday, and we'll check it out and see how our guys are able to do. Just a plug for the show, if you can go to vocfb.com/shop. That's vocfb.com/shop. If you're looking for a way to support the show, we've got a lot of different merchandise on there. There's a team section filter. Arkansas is on there. Go click it. Take a look at all the things that we've got. And if you're looking to support the show in a certain way, this will be a great opportunity to do so. So vocfb.com/shop. So we're going to get into today. So talked a little bit about what guys are going to be participating in the combine. But one of the things I really want to get into today is talking about this upcoming roster for Ryan Silverfield. So if you go to ArkansasRazorbacks.com, go over to the football section and click on the roster. The roster currently reflects the current spring roster that is set for this upcoming season, with all the new guys that are coming in from the transfer portal. A lot of the freshmen that have early enrolled are on that list. So we're going to kind of break down that roster. We're going to do both the offensive and defensive side of the football. And I'm just going to give you my ranking of each position group. So it's not necessarily a letter grade ranking. It's just comparing them to one another. On the offensive side, we have 5 groups, and on the defensive side, we have 5 groups. So offensively, we'll do quarterback, running back, receiver, tight end, and then just the offensive line as a whole. And then on the defensive side of the football, we're going to do the defensive tackle position, the edge rusher position, and then the linebacker position. And then we'll split up DBs into corner and safety. And those will be those 5 positions. So we're going to get into it, and we're going to start with the offensive side of the football. And we're going to jump into it right away. And do we go 1 to 5? Do we go 5 to 1? Let's do 5 to 1, because this will be the hottest position to start with. Because for me, the last ranked position on the offensive side is the quarterback position. And right now, our current roster, as it stands, Hank Hendricks will also be added to this. But we've got 4 guys. It's Cade Trotter, who I believe is walking on to the Razorbacks coming from Clemson. And then the 3 main guys here: A.J. Hill from Memphis, a redshirt freshman; Braden Fuller, redshirt senior from Angelo State; and then K.J. Jackson, who made a couple of starts at the end of the season, a redshirt sophomore, who has been with the program. Now, this will be his 3rd year. So these 3 guys make up the quarterback position. there's nothing really attractive about this position right now. KJ Jackson has minimal time played for the Razorbacks. He showed some highlights, but there's no real. To me, it's hard to evaluate a guy like him early on. So if you're like this guy's legit, it really can't be too much off of his college tape because he hasn't produced a lot of that. AJ Hill, similarly, he was a four-star recruit, highly touted coming out of high school. That's all we really have from him. And then we've kind of got the veteran, high ceiling. Uh, or high floor, low ceiling player, and that's Braden Fuller. They all are similar height weights, at least listed according to the roster. KJ Jackson's about 6'4", 225, Hill 6'4", 230, and then Braden Fuller 6'3", 230. So that is at least an advantage that player to player, they do have obviously some different things about him. KJ Jackson being a left-handed passer, but having a similar size type at the quarterback position can be advantageous given any injuries, and it allows you to maybe kind of seamlessly switch between quarterbacks. Obviously, the traits, the ability to run, how good of a pass they are, that varies between the three different players. But to have a similar size type is nice. But to me, this is the lowest position. I think as an Arkansas Razorback fan, if you could add a player to this team, and obviously the quarterback position is always the one everybody's constantly evaluating, no matter who you are. But this is easily the spot I think we'd look for an upgrade. I think people do have belief in KJ Jackson, but there's not a lot there yet. And so right now, I'm not one of those guys. We'll see. It doesn't mean I think he's going to be terrible, but I do like where we were at the quarterback position last year more than that. And I think Taylor Green's a better player than KJ Jackson. We'll see if I'm wrong about that this upcoming season. But as of right now, that to me is the fifth ranked position. Not too much higher, but a little bit higher for me. At number four is the wide receiver position. So right now, returning from last year's team, you have C.J. Brown and Jalen Brown. You have Ismail Cisse, who didn't play any last year. You have Monte Harrison and Antonio Jordan. And so nobody really impressive. Omega Blake's gone. Cam Shanks decided to transfer. Raylan Sharp's eligibility was out. So a lot of the guys that had catches in last year's season are gone. C.J. Brown's like the main dude coming back. And then Jalen Brown, who ultimately got hurt earlier in the season in 2025. But this is a spot where we could be made or break on the how well the transfer class coming in does, and that includes guys like Chris Marshall, the receiver out of Boise State, Donovan Faupel, the receiver out of New Mexico State, Jamari Hawkins, who's coming with Ryan Silverfield from Memphis, and then Jelani Watkins, a receiver from LSU. A couple of freshmen that are already in the spring roster, and that's Blair Irvin the third and DeQuain Prevost, both playing at Bentonville High School this past season. But there's a lot of variability at this receiver position. I'm excited for guys like Chris Marshall and Donovan Faupel. Good numbers this past season, but coming from the group of five, that's kind of where we've lived the last couple of years at this receiver position. And different guys have hit. Omega Blake had a great season last year. The D2 transfers from years back, and Isaac Tesla and Andrew Armstrong, they were successful at Arkansas. So we've definitely seen success from some of these smaller school players at this position. But with a lot of different guys coming in, at different builds, different body types. Jamari Hawkins, more of a slot guy, shiftier player. And then Marshall Faupel, 200-plus pound guys that can play on the outside. I'm excited for this position, even though I have them ranked fourth. But there is a lot of variability. This could easily be our worst position, honestly, if I'm being real, going into this upcoming season. But it also could be one of our stronger suits if some of these type of guys break out and have impact seasons for us in 2026. So heading into the top three, at number three, I have the offensive line. To me, this is one of our strong suits relatively this past season, but we lose a couple of guys. I mentioned Fernando Carmona being at the combine. He is one of them. And then Corey Robinson, the left tackle, and then right tackle, Marion Harris Robinson, out of eligibility. And then Marion Harris transferring to Oklahoma. So we do return two starters, though. That's Caden Kittler at center, and then Kobe Branham at right guard. Two other guys that I think are going to be competing for probably left guard, but even maybe one of those positions, and different players move around. I think there's four guys ultimately that are fighting for those three interior spots, and that includes the two guys I mentioned, Branham and Kittler. And then also I look at two guys that transferred in as Malachi Breland, the left guard from Memphis, and then Davion Witherspoon. I believe they started at left guard as well at Ohio. He was a all first team MAC conference player. And then Breland, another impressive player at Memphis. So I think those four guys compete for the three interior spots, and then one of them will be that depth piece. Where it really worries me, and it's kind of worried me over the last several years, is the offensive tackle position specifically. Bryant Williams at left tackle from Louisiana, I think, could be one of our better left tackles in the last 5 years. I think that he's an impressive player, a big time add to the transfer portal, but it's the right tackle position, which maybe Bryant Williams moves over there because if KJ Jackson's your quarterback, your right tackle is your left tackle, essentially. So Terrence Roberson Jr. From Washita Baptist. What does he look like? A D2 prospect. What is he able to bring in his first year at the D1 Power 5 level? Another guy, Adam Hawks, a more depth piece for Oregon State, a young player, and Josiah Clemens, just one of those guys I mentioned earlier, playing on the interior. Take looks at offensive tackle. I'm not 100% sure, but there's a lot of different guys to look at. But who ultimately wins that second tackle position and where that person ends up being placed at, I think is going to be really pivotal for us. But ultimately, I do like 4 out of our 5 linemen just right now out of the gate. And so I'm excited about this position. There's not a Fernando Carmona maybe in the mix right now, a guy that could be a bona fide draft pick, but I do think that I like the depth here, and especially on the interior with Weatherspoon and Breland coming in alongside the 2 guys we already had, and Branham and Kittler, and even a guy like Cash Courtney is a good depth piece for us this past season, and Brooks Edmondson. So those are guys that were at that like the second string players. I think that will add great depth for us. So I like the offensive line position at third. Number 2, we've got 2 different positions to choose between. Is it tight end? Is it running back? I'm going to go number 2, the running back position. So Mike Washington Jr. is headed to the NFL, a likely draft pick, but we do return Braylon Russell, and a guy about 6'1", 240, a real workhorse back that early in the season was splitting carries with Washington, and then over time kind of lost those carries and became a true number 2 back. But he's going to have another shot to be RB1, and that's going to be fought alongside a smaller back in Sutton Smith, who's 5'9", about a buck 90, who came with Silverfield from Memphis. And then you've got I would say X factor developmental guy in Jasper Parker, a highly rated recruit that originally went to Michigan, about 6', 205, a true sophomore. What does he bring to the table? He's a guy I don't know. He could be RB1 maybe by the end of the season. He could be RB3. I'm excited to see what he can do and really develop here for the Razorbacks this upcoming season. But it's really those 3 guys. Cam Settles is back, barely played at all last year. TJ Hodges is an incoming freshman player, but I really do like Russell. He was the guy that I even said, I'll be honest on record, that I was like, if he transfers, that's whatever. But I do think he's a guy like that's just because of the room and the amount of carries you're going to have. I think you can still get away with having the same level of production without him in the room. But if he's in the room, I mean, I'll take him. And so he's a bigger guy. He's a 240. He's our only guy that's like that size. And so to have smaller backs in Sutton Smith and Jasper Parker, I think is going to be a great 1-2 combo. Last year, Washington and Russell, they're similar size. They don't run the same, given that Washington, I think, is a faster player. But I thought they were a little similar. Washington was a better receiver, I think a better runner. But I think this kind of gives a little more dynamic duo. Sutton Smith is a guy who can run in between tackles. I mean, you saw him with what he did to us early in the season, but I think it's a more Batman and Robin type running game than it was last year, where I think it was just kind of 1A, 1B of the same player. So I do like the running back position a lot, which ultimately leads to tight end position as number 1. And this is because I think the best just pure player on offense is at this position, and that was Jaden Platt. Jaden Platt had a very successful season last year. He's kind of the testimony of, hey, we don't know what we're going to get from some of these higher level recruits that went to Power 5 schools that just didn't see a lot of playing time, came here and really developed. I mean, Jaden Platt didn't play a lot at Texas A&M. I did not expect this. I really, going into this past season, the tight end room, Rohan Jones was the guy, and Rohan Jones had a good season. Even could make a mini camp or something in the NFL, but Jaden Platt played very well, like played just as well as Rohan Jones, if not better. He's your prototypical tight end, 6'5", 265, a solid blocker, a solid pass catcher. Like I think he just does it all for you. And then you bring in a couple of different guys around him. That's Matt Adcock, 6'3", 255 senior from Memphis, and then Ty Lockwood, 6'4", 245, who's done well so far in camp from Boston College. I think both of those guys round up the room perfectly. And this is another room I think that could be better than it was last year. And I think it was also one of the best positions on this offense last year. And so I like the guys in this room. You bring back Platt. You add a couple of transfer portal guys. Maddox Lassiter is kind of your H back, fullback guy that played a little bit last year. But I just really like this room. Is it the most pivotal position to our success on the offensive side of the football? Of course not. That's the quarterback position. And I have that at 5. But we're not basing it off of the impact it can have. I'm just basing it purely off like, hey, where's our best players, and what position group I think can be the best at what it's said to do and what it's asked to do of the coaching staff this upcoming season. And to me, number one's tight end. So that's my ranking on the offensive side. I got quarterback, receiver, O line, running back, and then tight end to me is the best position. All right, we're going to take a break and we will be right back right after this.
Hey y'all, this is Grant Sashray of LSU at the Voice of College Football Network. I'm here today to announce that the Voice of College Football Network now has its official website. It's been uploaded so you can look at all the latest news and content from the Voice of College Football Network. Hey y'all, this is Grant Sashray of LSU at the Voice of College Football Network. I'm here today to announce that the Voice of College Football Network now has its official website. It's been uploaded so you can look at all the latest news and content from the Voice of College Football Network. You can also look at different forums, channels, shows, and it has to show all the show schedules right here and the host. Make sure to check out the Voice of College Football's new website at vocfb.com. Once again, vocfb.com.
We are back. We got a little out of whack there for a second. So, all right. Talked about the offensive side of the football. We're going to switch over to the defensive side of the football. And this was obviously our biggest problem last year was the defensive side of the football. We couldn't stop anybody. And I'm hoping for something different this year. We'll see what Ron Roberts, the new defensive coordinator, is able to do for this roster. But let's start 5-1, just like we did for the offensive side of the football. And we'll start at a position that maybe was a little bit better than I see it being this year. And that's the cornerback position. And that's really just because it's all new dudes. And I like some of the names in here. I'm going to kind of throw out a few of those names. Let's start with Lakai Rowland and Braden Lee. Those are 2 corners from Maryland. Jaheim Johnson, who's kind of the prized recruit to me on the defensive side of the football out of Tulane. Kaiare Maglore. I'm just shooting that shot. I don't even know if that's anywhere close to right. But that is the corner position. The player out of West Georgia. Just we'll see if that was correct. But Shelton Lewis, a guy out of Clemson. So several different names there. But nobody that to me is proven enough. Like Jaheim Johnson, I think is pretty legit. Lakai Rowland, we'll see how well he is. But it's a difficult position to play in college football. And to be totally honest with you, like I think that this past year, Julian Neal was a good player. Clearly, he's got a shot at being drafted. I thought Kenai Walker was a good player, but even then, we still struggled at the position a little bit. And I just think this year, the guys we brought in to replace those players, I like the 2 guys I mentioned, Roland and Jaheim Johnson. I'm just skeptical of the room in its totality. I liked some of the guys in that room last year a little bit more than I do with this year's group. But I really think that this is a room that I don't know. I'm a little skeptical of. And so we'll see come season if this is like what the roster looks like and these are the exact guys in it. And maybe there's a lot of positivity coming out of spring and what these guys are able to do. But right now for me, it's the 5th spot. And then at number 4, I've got the defensive tackle position. And this honestly could have been 5. I was kind of deciding between these 2 positions. But this was the position to me that was the worst last year. And no disrespect to Cam Ball, who I think played a solid season, but he was kind of alone in that. And this year, there's going to be a lot of different names again. We'll start with the four-star freshman best player in our class for this upcoming season. That's Danny Beal III, who early recruited or early enrolled. We've got a couple different guys. Anthony Kennedy Jr. is another freshman. David Oke is back after injury, so we'll see what he can produce this season. Reginald Vaughn is another guy on the interior. And then there's a whole lot of transfers, and that includes Hunter Osborne, a defensive lineman from Virginia, Trajan Odom from Ohio State, redshirt freshman, and then Xadavian Sims from Oregon, and then Carlin Jones from USC. So many guys, all redshirt sophomore or younger. So more prized recruits coming out of high school, got them on the cheap, relatively to be guys on our interior, and we'll just see if what they were billed to be coming out of high school pans out. And so we mentioned it with Jaden Platt. There's other examples of this, but there's all the other guys that just didn't, and they fell flat on their face. And it's really the variability here, kind of like the receiver position, that I'm skeptical of what we're going to get at the interior defensive line. And maybe some of it was just because of how poorly we played last year. We do return guys like David Oke is back. Reginald Vaughn didn't play a ton, but he's back. And so there's a couple players returning on this team, but it is a bunch of transfer portal guys. It's a couple of freshmen that are some of the best in the class, but will they have any impact this upcoming season? I'm not sure. So there's a reason to be excited. There's a lot of names here, but I don't know how well they'll produce this upcoming year. All right, we get to the top three. At number three, I've got the safety position. What I like about this position to me more than the cornerback position is the guys are a little bit older. Christian Harrison, a redshirt senior from Cincinnati and from Tennessee, is coming in. Carter Stoutmeyer, a defensive back, a senior from Colorado. John House the fourth, a guy who's played at Vanderbilt in Middle Tennessee, a redshirt senior. A lot of different older guys. Miguel Mitchell is the one dude in this defensive back room that's returning, a redshirt senior. And so I just like the age of a lot of these guys. And so those four players, I think, are really going to compete for those two safety spots. Some of those guys may compete at the nickel position as well. But just the age of a lot of these safeties is really what to me is the most intriguing. Is here because they're all veteran players for the college football level. So seniors or redshirt seniors, I really like seeing that. Proven players in this league, and guys that have played in the SEC specifically. So Christian Harrison played at Tennessee. John House the fourth played at Vanderbilt. So having that SEC experience, and Miguel Mitchell, a guy who played for Florida and for us, really helpful. So I really am excited about those guys at the safety position. Number two is the linebacker position, and this is one that probably was my favorite going into last season. It was probably the most disappointing relative to expectation. So I'm a little skeptical to put them on here again, but I do like them. I can't deny it. And so Bradley Shaw is the big returnee from last year's team. I thought he played better than a lot of the other guys, just relative to their own expectations. Like I think he was not necessarily billed to be an impact player for us last year. Story and Dix were, but I thought played pretty well. So he's back, and then several veteran players also older in their years. Kamori House, a junior who was very impressive for North Carolina last year. Phoenix Jackson out of Baylor, redshirt senior, dealt with injury last year. Was originally at Fresno State. Productive player at the linebacker position, Jaquavion Smith out of Howard. Jeremy Evans also from Baylor. And then Ben Bogle out of West Virginia, another impact linebacker. So there's a lot of names, a lot of players, and I think a lot of them have the opportunity to make an impact this season. And so Bradley Shaw leads the group as the returnee, but Kamori House, Ben Bogle, Phoenix Jackson, I like a lot of those names. And I think this position lands in at number two. Then through deductive reasoning, that leaves one position left, and that is the edge rusher position. Similar to me in the way I talked about the tight end position, which this to me is a more impact position. In fact, could be the most impactful position on the defensive side. It's really one guy that's leading this group, and that's the best player probably on our team in general. A guy who, in my opinion, probably should have went to the NFL draft, but that is what it is. And that is Quincy Rhodes Jr., the 6'6", 275-pound defensive end. He's our best player. He really is. And so there's a couple other names to know outside of him. A couple of freshmen and Colton Yarborough And then I think there was one more freshman, redshirt freshman, sorry, Keandre Johnson, who was on the team last year. And then a couple other transfers coming in. Steven Souls Jr. out of Kentucky, and then Jamonta Waller out of Auburn, and then one other guy who also returned from last year's team, Charlie Collins, a guy who played a decent bit of snaps, the second real returnee after Quincy Rhodes Jr. But this to me is the best room on this defensive side of the football, and like I said, it is really led by Quincy Rhodes Jr. and the impact he had this past season. He was our best player. On last year's team, so I think he could be the best player on this year's team. The one deficit, and this really shouldn't have an impact on this ranking, but in terms of the overall production for this position, is what do we see from offensive lines against Quincy Rhodes Jr. And this is a real test for a lot of those other guys on the opposite side, whether it be Charlie Collins, Jamonta Waller, Steven Souls Jr., on if they can really rush the passer, because I think he's going to see a lot of double teams. And so that's helpful for the rest of our defensive line to see how much of an impact they can have. But it also can be hurtful where if he's the one and only dude that can produce, him getting double teams, man, this group could really be facing a lot of adversity this upcoming season. But I do think number one has got to be the edge rusher position, purely based off of Quincy Rhodes Jr. So I like that position. And if I had to like throw it between them and tight end, I just think in purely what they're going to be able to do this upcoming season, I'd honestly throw tight end probably at the top, but edge rusher is a close second. So that's the breakdown of each position. Like I said, we're kind of in that springtime where there's not as much to talk about, not as much happening on a week-to-week basis. So I just kind of wanted to go over the roster. We've kind of got it over in a couple different capacities through either the freshmen or the transfers, but I kind of wanted to group it all together, including those guys that have decided to come back and kind of give you a position group rating of where I'm seeing it right now. But with the spring portal coming up, there's going to be guys that leave again. So there may be guys that come in for all we know. But it's just the era of college football that we live in, that this roster is not going to be fully the same in 6 months. So I figured why it is what it is right now with some of the freshmen early enrolled. We could talk about this roster and kind of give you just a high level view of what group is where, and where I see them compared to their counterparts on each side of the football. So we usually have shows around 4:30 to 5:30. Please like, share, subscribe, turn on notifications to the Voice of College Football Arkansas, just so you know when we go live, and you're able to tune in with us. So, like always, God bless, and go Hogs.